What's going on, everyone? This is Sheets, and I'm going to be going through the NHL and the NBA live. I have a little bit of time, so I may as well just do this. Again, the big news is the NFL Showdown slate tonight, so um, hopefully NBA and NHL will not be as jam-packed with Sharks. And that's kind of what happened yesterday. Yesterday, I actually took down the NHL slate when obviously nobody's paying attention because it's Sunday football, and it's just kind of the thing that I like to do. Is I like to play these sports when they're not quite as popular, even though they don't pay as much for first. It's I think you make up for that with it being a little softer. So at about 7 o'clock, Bobby's going to come on with Brandon Cruz and talk about the NFL Showdown, which I presume most people want to see. So uh, I don't know how many people are here watching, but people have asked me what my process was for building NHL because I've run pretty much like Usain Bolt for the last really like 3 months in NHL GPPs. So there's really no reason for me to change my process. At least right now. So we're going to keep doing the way we're doing it, and I'm just going to walk you through it. And there's obviously probably better ways to do things, but as I like to say, there are two main mistakes that people make in business or businesses make. One is to take a bad idea and one that's not working and keep doing it. And the second mistake that people make in business is taking an idea that is working and stop doing it. So, and each mistake is responsible for quite a bit of downside. So we're gonna continue to do what's been working, and I'm gonna go over one tweak which I've really adopted that I've fought for a long time, specific to how to use SaberSim, where and we'll talk about that. So if you have any questions, feel free to poke to feel free to ask. Daniel Pope UFC was no good for me, but 6 weeks. I have this new tool which I'm kind of working on that I'm really excited about, and I have like 6 months, no, excuse me, like 6 weeks to test it and back test it, having to do with duplication and portfolio management and spreading out your duplication. Anyway, pretty exciting stuff. I mean, as exciting as it can be when you're dealing with Python and writing code and integrating it with spreadsheets and things like that. But it is what it is. So again, first we're going to do hockey. Give NBA a few minutes to settle. Right now, it doesn't seem like there's too much big news in the NBA, which I've learned to not tempt the NBA gods by saying that. Usually, once that happens, somebody really big gets ruled out, and I have to redo everything, which is a little annoying. So, all right. So let's first things first. Let me share my screen, and now these are the two hockey sheets that I kind of have, and I'm just going to be very upfront with you. This is what I use. So these are my projections, and this is on an individual player basis. And in the E column here, you have fantasy points. In the F column, points per dollar. This is called Sheets Value Score. It's not that complicated, but it's just kind of a formula that I kind of like to use that kind of makes some sense of points per dollar and raw fantasy points. Where RG had a formula not exactly like this which they use for their RG value, and a lot of sites do this. And I actually use kind of an old school formula to help calculate this Sheets Value Score, which again, I kind of like it as kind of a go-to way to rank players. Now, I'm not going to ever actually upload this into any optimizers or anything like that, but it just gives you a nice idea of what's going on here. So what I like to do with hockey, and it's a little silly, but I like to take a look at the players and see what I would think I would be getting as far as stacks go. And then I look at the actual stacks in a different sheet, and then I just run with SaberSim. So you'll see here also my projected ownership, what even strength line I project them to be on, what power play line. Now, again, this can change too. Slate ID and an opponent, you don't need to bother with that. So the first thing I like to look at is very simply, are there going to be players that are right near the top of the Sheets Value Score ranking that are from the same team? because that's what hockey's all about, is finding these lines and finding these stacks. And sometimes it's literally that easy to figure that out. And unfortunately, it's not like that really on this slate. What I will say is that the one that stands out, at least by just gazing at it, is the Rangers, because you do have 1, 2, 3, 4 Rangers all in the top 14, and they're all in the number one power play line. One of them, JT Miller, is not on the first even strength line, at least the way I have him projected, but they're at least on the same power play line. So if you're going to hand build, you would start, I think, with something like the Rangers. Okay. And again, I just like to get a sense of what I think I might end up getting. And then nothing else really stands out aside from that. The other thing I like to look at to see if there's any kind of value one-offs that are going to stand out here, like Granlund 3,500, Pionk 3,300. These are like the two kind of value plays that you might end up with in some of your lineups. And again, I usually just do let SaberSim kind of help me with this, but I do like to also double check to see what I was expecting. Okay, so now let's go to the other sheet that I like to use, and that's the stack sheet. Oh, and by the way, all of these are my own, and I sometimes put these up on the TrueDFS site, but it's only for premium members. So you don't really see this for free, but whatever. This is a ranking of each of the teams. Now there are 3 different ways that I rank them. One is by this B column, which is just raw points. And all this does is it takes the top 5 projected players from the same line from each team, and then it just ranks them based on how many points they expect to score, fantasy points. So I rate this by raw points, and you'll see Dallas is number 1. Okay. And the thing to look at, by the way, is that particular stack doesn't project to be the highest projected stack. As highest owned. You see this projects much lower owned than Winnipeg. So that's something to consider. Now, this one in the middle is value, and all this is just basically points per dollar. It's the top stack that rates the best on a point per dollar basis. And this is where you see Winnipeg come up number 1, and then you see the Rangers number 2. So we mentioned I thought the Rangers would be okay, but check this out. The ownership of the Rangers look really, really high. And this Winnipeg, despite them being the number 1 point per dollar stack, their ownership seems kind of low. So already I can sort of see that, I don't know, this Winnipeg might not be so bad. Now this H column modified stack, this kind of puts it all together. And really all this is that sheet's value score metric that I alluded to earlier, that's put together in stack format. So it's basically the top 5 players with the best sheet's value score, whatever, in that line. And C, now you have Winnipeg and the Rangers 1, 2. Okay, so these you would expect to be the top projected lines when you ran an optimizer. Okay. Now, the thing about this is that when we use SaberSim, it's sort of an optimizer, but what we're going to have it do is simulate the results of the lineups against what we think the field is going to do, and you might end up not even getting the stacks that you would think. But I do like to at least start with this. So if you were hand building, maybe you would play some combinations of Rangers, Winnipeg. Okay. Okay. So let's now that we've given that kind of a test run, let's pull up SaberSim, and I've already put a dummy lineups in, but just to kind of show you what I do is once I put the lineups in, first we're going to upload this the slate to SaberSim, and it makes it very easy for you. It saves your dummy entries over here. I mean, it saves your dummy entries on DraftKings and wherever you save your download files to on your computer. It goes up here, and then all the lineups are now in here. And this gives you kind of a sense of what we're playing tonight. So we're playing 1 in the top shelf, 1 entry, 52 in the overload, and 142 in the poke check. And what this does is it automatically knows what you're playing. And then what it does, it's going to pre-select the fields that it's going to project for those contests. So again, we're going to build a whole bunch of lineups, but then we're going to compare those lineups to what we think the field is going to do to see which ones rate out the best. So we have to figure out what the field is going to do. And when it comes to hockey, even though I'll put my ownerships against SaberSims any day of the week, there's no way that my fields are going to be as good as SaberSims, because creating a field for a line for a sport which is so correlative like hockey, it's not just about combining the individual ownerships. It's what the stack it's going to be owned. So very, very hard in those types of sports, hockey, baseball, even football, really, to put to replace the fields with your own just because you might have good ownership. Okay. I mean, you could like run optimals on your own and then create your field that way, but I just still feel as though they just are much better than I could ever be. I mean, not ever, but they're better than I am at creating these fields. So I'm going to leave these fields the same, okay, as they would. So for Top Shelf, we're going to use their high stakes 20 max field to compare ours to the Overload, Flagship MME, and Poke Check MME as well. Okay. So the dummy lineups are in, everything is in. Next thing to do is to put our projections in. And you can use your own, you can use SaberSims, whatever, but this is my process, right? I'm going to use my own, and I'm going to replace them, and then I'm going to click exclude unlisted players. I'm not going to create custom fields from ownerships for this sport. So now you'll see that it replaced SaberSims with my own. And here's a neat little color thing that you can appreciate. That what this is going to do is it's going to tell you which projections you're below or which you are above SaberSims baseline. So if it's green, then you're above. If you're red, you're below. And I do find that it's somewhat important, because if I see like all red, for example, maybe there's something wrong with my file. Or if it's all green, maybe there's something wrong with my file. So I think that's something worth doing here. Okay, so everything's ready to go. And we want to build our lineups, but there's one. Now, here's the one difference that I have adopted over the last 6 months for this whole season, really. So I believe that correlation is more important in hockey than almost any sport, except for maybe League of Legends. I guess baseball too. And I feel as though that there are too many lineups that do not have the necessary correlation that people are playing. To the point where what I do every single slate is I will only play lineups that are either 6-man onslaughts, 5-2s, or 4-3s, and that's it. Okay. And nobody said right or wrong, but it is what I do. So there are two ways to request that of SaberSim. And you get two sort of different results depending on how you approach it. What I used to do is, what I would do is I would build my big set of lineups first and don't tell SaberSim what to do. And then after that, I would then, filter down and say, you know what, at this point, let's knock out anything that's not 6-0, 5-2, or 4-3. Okay. Now, Adam Perry, who's very, very sharp, who's part of TrueDFS, who's, he's been around the block, he's suggested, like, for a while, that I should really just do the opposite. The idea being that as long as if I'm going to knock out those bow wow stacks anyway, why even build them in the first place? And I had a couple of reasons why I would have preferred to not build them that way in the first place. Part of it was so that I could at least see what I would be getting on my own. In other words, if I was going to be getting all these 3-3-2s, maybe I shouldn't be getting 6s, 5-2s, or 4-3s. But I made that change about 6 months ago to only require those stacks, require all those stacks, only those stacks from pre-build on. And so what you do is we'll go into stack exposure and we'll unclick all these. And then we will only allow 6s, 5-2s, and 4-3s. Okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to hit build lineups. And that's basically it. Okay, so you have to listen. You have to have a good set of projections, obviously, right? And that's obviously really important. And then for me, my approach is to get super duper stacked, super correlated, okay, and then just pile, okay. Now, I'll go through this. I'll show you what we do and what we get, but it doesn't really matter what I get. The only other decision that's kind of relevant is once these lineups are built and after you run the sims, do you let SaberSim do portfolio mode? And what that does is instead of just giving you the top 150 or whatever ROI lineups, what it will do is actually do some smart diversification where it kind of spreads out your money exposure throughout your entire portfolio. As instead of just, being very dogmatic and saying, let's just jam in those top 150 top ROI lineups, even if they're just all incredibly risky around from the same team. So, and that's again something that I struggled with, for a little while, because quite honestly, I don't say I don't believe it, but I haven't seen any of the supporting data of how they're doing this, and unfortunately, I know a little bit too much about portfolio management theory to just kind of accept them at face value. But I decided to accept it at face value. So I have been using the the portfolio plus setting here. And you'll see that it's already simmed and it's already going to diversification mode. Now it's already done. Now you see here it says last sim time 6:17. You see the breakdown 4, 3, 5, 2s, and 6s. And now we hit just save all. And now we download and we put them all in. Now, for those of you that are watching this for the first time, I mean, you're inclined to ask, okay, so who do we have? And this is going to be, I guess, somewhat controversial, but I just don't look. And the reason for that is we have good projections, right? We trust our projections. We trust our decisions about what stacks we want to use. We trust our tools, right, to create our lineups. We trust our contest fields to sim them properly. And we trust our portfolio management tools. So if we're going to trust our inputs, what should it matter what the outputs are? So I don't find it particularly relevant. All it would do is just bias me one way or the other. I'll look once the slate locks so I know what to root for, because I actually do enjoy rooting. But I have no interest in knowing who I have now, because all it will do, it does me no good, really. What am I going to do? Change it? Based on what? You know what I mean? I've already engaged in the process. Why would I want to change it? Just to override all these systems with some random biases or gut feels? No, thank you. Now, the other thing that I should tell you is that hockey is a late swap sport. Okay. So technically what you should be doing is at every, once the certain mini slates lock and you have your ownerships already in, you should rerun your lineups, because it will SaberSim takes into account what the previous ownerships were to when they ownerships were when they put their new ownerships in. So you really are supposed to technically late swap to take that into consideration. However, I don't late swap in hockey as much as I might in other sports, and I don't know exactly how to describe this, but I think that the late swap in hockey messes with my stack settings, sort of. Like I just don't feel as though, like, if I went into the late swap mode, I think that it would be tough for me to get as much correlation as I think I need. So it's just kind of a decision I made, like, to not late swap in hockey, and it's kind of, I guess it feels sort of dumb that I'm doing that, but I'm just kind of talking through this. But that's what I do. Listen, if there's a substitution or something like that, then you obviously have to do that. But aside from that, I just have no interest. Not no interest. I just haven't really embraced the late swapping in hockey yet. The other thing I have to check is the goalies. Always have to make sure that the goalies are new, are starting. Okay. Now, a couple of questions before we move on. Are the lineups much different from the $5 and the $1 lineups? I don't think so, except for to say that if you're playing a $1 tournament, then you're probably going to be simming your lineups against the $1 field, which is going to be different than the high stakes field. So you probably would get different lineups for that contest. Okay. So yeah. So that is really the whole hockey process. And again, the only thing I need to do is I have to make sure that I don't have any goalies that are not out. So I would just double check that as we get a little bit closer to lock. Okay. Let's go on to the NBA. Let me just check a couple of my Discords to see if there's anything here. Doesn't seem like there's too much. 6:22 p.m. and still nothing. But we'll see, because I do remember there being some questionables. So let's take a look at that. So here are my dummy lines. Look at utility, and let's just see. Anthony Davis was probable, like he was playing, right? So it looks like everybody's in. Pritchard's in. All right, Gafford and Eason. I'm not too interested in these guys anyway. All right, so it looks like this is going to be pretty. This is going to be pretty pure, right? Let me just check, see where Mr. Sheets is. Okay, so we'll be back soon. Okay. So same initial thing that we want to do is we want to look at the projections. Now here we're going to do both DraftKings and FanDuel. So here's the NBA, and it looks sort of similar to the NHL. Now the one thing about the NBA is it's much more projection based than NHL. Very little correlation to speak of. And you're just not going to get too much difference. You don't want to get too different in the NBA. There's very, very little room to go really, really super low owned in the NBA. Now that's not to say that you can't win, but it's hard. You have to have really good projections, really good sims, and then really hope you get lucky. I mean, that's really what it is. So let's take a look at the NBA here. Again, let's take a look first, ranking them all by Sheets value score, and you'll see that Nikola Jokic, best play, all right, and then Anthony Davis. Now here's one little hint of how to read my sheets in the NBA. So what you want to do in the NBA is this: what you want to look for are guys with a high Sheets value score who are not that high salary, and the reason for that is that Sheets value score actually really favors just kind of the high projected points. So if you could find someone with a good Sheets value score, which is not that highly salaried, you're probably in good shape. And that's why it's no surprise that this guy, Kyle Filipowski, low enough salary and still has a really good value score, Sheets value score. And of course, that's why he's the highest owned player on the slate. Okay. This is what the NBA is. On the other hand, if you rate them by points per dollar, okay, first thing I'd like to do is I want to see what type of points per dollar guys we're looking at today. So we have nobody that's rating above 6x. which to me means the value stinks. Okay, you really want to have some players above 6x. So what you want to do now is sort of the opposite of Sheets value score. Like we're trying to find guys with this high Sheets value score with low salaries. But what we want to do with points per dollar is find good points per dollar plays with high salaries. So again, no surprise, Kyle Filipowski has a higher salary than all these guys, and he does have, the top point per dollar play on the slate, which is again why he's the highest owned. But the guy that really stands out here is Anthony Davis. So Anthony Davis, like as of all these point per dollar plays, he has 9,500 salary and a 5.2x point per dollar. So he is a very, very strong play today. So I would consider him, and he's, I would say only, but 26% ownership. I mean, I think that's fair. Now, one thing you could do is you could double check my ownerships here, make sure this all adds to 800, and it does. And because of that, I'm just, what I'm sort of inclined to do? I'm sort of inclined to use my ownership projections in the contest sims, not for all the contests, but for the lottery. Okay. So we're going to do that, but before we do, we're going to look at FanDuel. Look at FanDuel, see if there's any real difference there. And same sheet, there's no stack sheet. Same deal. Let's look at Sheets value score and who's low priced. Kawhi Leonard, very good play apparently on FanDuel. And then when you sort by point per dollar, there it is. There's Filipowski again. But so Kawhi Leonard is probably the best play on FanDuel, where, what's his name? Anthony Davis is probably the best play on DraftKings. But, SaberSim is probably going to take care of all this for us. But I'm going to predict that on FanDuel, Kawhi Leonard will be my highest owned player, and maybe also Filipowski. And on DraftKings, it will be Anthony Davis and Kyle Filipowski. That is going to be my prediction. But let us see. Let's go to SaberSim and let's start with DraftKings. And here we will show you who I have just to kind of prove my point. All right. So first of all, only a 4-game slate. Interesting to note that there is this gap between the 7:30 games and the 9:30s. So you're definitely going to want a late swap. So let's, again, same as before, let's upload our projections. Boom. And there's one difference we're going to make here. When we get to this point where it says automatically create custom fields from ownership, we are going to click this. Now, that doesn't make us have to use them, but it gives us the option. So we'll call this Sheets. So what it's doing now is it is building, it's uploading the projections, then it's building a field based on these ownerships. So what I'm doing is I am now going to select this field as my representative field to sim my lottery tournament against. Just because I do have some faith in my ownerships and I don't have any worries about correlation pieces and things like that. So let's so what we're going to do is we go into contests, and same thing. Here are my lineups, my dummy lineups. So for the fadeaway, instead of using flagship MME, we're going to make this Sheets. So when we sim, we're going to sim normally against the alley-oop, but then it's going to use my cut fields to sim the fadeaway. Okay. So let us see how that works. Ready? And we just go bam. Build some lineups. We don't make any rules. We don't make any stacks. We don't say I want min salary X. I don't want to have I don't want to have more than 5 guys on the Jazz or whatever it is. This is a projection game, and we love our projections, and it's an ownership game, and we love our ownership projections, and we trust the SaberSim algorithm to put it all together for us and build us the right lineups, given those, what I think are kind of premier inputs. And again, if you think you have good inputs, you really should not be complaining about whatever outputs emerge. So let's see. finding lines and lineups, 20,000. And here I will show you who I have again, just to kind of illustrate the way projections kind of rule the roost. And I'm curious to see if I was right about Anthony Davis on DraftKings and Kawhi on FanDuel. We shall see. Processing build request. And now it is simming against those two contests because I have it set to automatically sim. And again, 7 o'clock, we're going to be talking about the NFL with Bobby and Cruz. Cruz, he's got to be one of the best showdown players nowadays. So I do encourage you to show up for that if, in fact, he's going to be there. All right, so now, again, it's simmed one of the two contests. You're going to see this stuff fill in here in a minute. And then one of them is diversified. 2 of them have been diversified. So again, we're using the portfolio diversification setting. But again, here we're going to see we have. So first we're going to save them all. There it is, Anthony Davis, 52%, huh? Like that? So we knew. And we'll enter these. Now I'm also curious to see how much of the Filipowski I got. And I'm not going to change it, but I'm just curious. Let's see. We can look at it from here if we want. So let's up and coming. We'll look at exposures right from DraftKings. Yeah, Filipowski 75%, and then wow, Brandon Williams, wow, from Dallas, and Anthony Davis. So that's well, whatever. Tobias Harris, A. Bailey. Oh, is that Thurl Bailey's kid? Who knows? Ingram 43%, et cetera. I don't see any Jokic, which is a little bit disconcerting, but it is what it is. Oh, actually, I do. That's not true. I do have 20%. Okay. Now I also see Brandon Williams as questionable. Oh goodness! Very late addition to the injury report, and that's a troubling sign. Well, okay. So we will see. We will see what happens there. But we're going to leave him in for now because you know what? If he's not in, I bet you the Ryan Nembhard's going to take his place. And if Ryan Nembhard, what's his price? Oh, I already have him in. He's 4,500. I mean, he's almost going to be a lock if Brandon Williams is out. So I am glad that I'm playing all this Dallas stuff because when that news comes out, that is going to be a big deal. Okay, let's do FanDuel. And we'll do the same thing. And then I believe we will get out of here. Let's see how this looks. FanDuel, again, same thing. And then we'll do a new build. And again, I'm curious to see whether we get the Kawhi Leonard or not. And then this and this. Ooh, what is that? No, I don't want. Oh, no wonder. That's pretty funny. Put the football in. I don't want that, do I? NBA, right? Okay. NBA, that's where I keep my files. This, again, create custom fields. And then this, and then this. And now, again, it's going to build my own fields. Now, again, this stupid Brandon Williams thing is going to be an annoyance. Because it's going to change all the ownerships. So this is another reason why, I mean, like for NBA, you just have to late swap. And you really need that data of what the ownerships were on these previous dudes because without that, you really can't do a good simulation of what the later dudes are going to be getting. So, all right, so let's go into contests. And again, same thing. We will replace the flagship MME with the Sheets ones. And we are going to then blast this. And I want to see how much of the Kawhi Leonard I get. Okay, so this is actually pretty quick. 20,000 lineups being finalized. Processing build requests. And again, so much of the NBA is not just projections, but getting these late swaps done. Very important. So again, 0 of 2 completed. It shouldn't take too long. So again, it's pretty stress-free to employ your process once you've done the work with the projections. So I'm sure that, I mean, if you're a serious player, you'll have access to good projections and you'll be a step ahead of the game. Same thing with FanDuel, by the way. The red, it means that we're below SaberSim. The green means we're a little above. Okay, so 0 of 2 diversified. And I have 20,000 lineups available to me because I have this super duper plan or whatever. Okay, so here we go. Oh, not really Kawhi. Well, 40% Kawhi, but Ace Bailey getting all the action. Wapowski, Kawhi. All right, that's fine. I do like that it's the late game. Okay, this way we could do our swapping and be well within our rights to do so. Okay. And then up we go. And again, the NBA just is all night long. I mean, as news comes in, we're going to have to change everything, but this is the process. And then hopefully be around for late swap, etc. Okay, I hope that helped. All I could do is be transparent and show you exactly what I'm doing and how I do it. Whether that's correct or not, that will be for the basketball gods to decide, I guess. All right, come back at 7, and we're going to have